The council chamber on Meridian stood cold and vast. High ceilings reached into darkness, and walls of polished stone reflected the light from thousands of floating lamps. Long tables formed a circle, and representatives from 30 different worlds sat in their assigned places. They spoke in low voices about trade, territory, and treaties. Most of them did not look at each other directly. They looked only at the documents and displays floating in front of them. Lieutenant Cross stood in the back corner of the chamber. He wore the black uniform of Earth's Space Corps. His job was simple. He protected Princess of the Empire. She sat at the main table, wearing white robes trimmed with gold thread. She was young, not yet 30 cycles old in Earth years, but her people had lived for thousands of years. They were an ancient species. They had mastered space travel before humans even discovered fire. Watched everyone in the room. He had been trained to notice small movements, sudden shifts, anything that could mean danger. The alien ambassadors barely looked at him. Some did not know he was there. One diplomat, a massive creature with dark skin and metal plates across his shoulders, had actually stepped around as if he were furniture. They were like that. They believed humans were primitive animals, useful animals, but animals all the same. Princess glanced back at once and gave him a small nod. She had always been kind to him. She asked his name during his first day of work. She listened when he spoke. She never treated him like he was less than anyone else in the room, but even her kindness could not change the way the rest of the galaxy saw humans. They saw soldiers, tools, things that could be replaced. The council had been meeting for 3 hours. Nothing important had happened yet. The wanted more mining rights on a distant planet. The supported better conditions for workers across the Empire. The Federation worried about pirate attacks near their shipping lanes. These were the kinds of problems the council solved every day. Problems that had taken humans generations to even think about solving. Stood still and watched. His hand rested near the weapon at his side. It was a particle rifle, old technology by galactic standards, but it worked well enough. He had trained with better weapons during his military service, but the council had decided that humans could only carry basic equipment. They did not trust humans with advanced technology. The doors at the far end of the chamber were made of reinforced metal. They slid open without making noise. Noticed this immediately. The doors never opened quietly. They always made a soft hissing sound. Someone had disabled the safety systems. His body moved before his mind caught up. He moved toward the doorway, keeping his eyes forward. He saw 3 figures entering through the door. They wore masks and carried weapons that did not recognize. One of them aimed directly at the council table, at Princess. He moved faster than a human should move. His muscles burned as he pushed his body to its absolute limit. He covered the distance between the back wall and the council table in less than 2 seconds. The first blast of energy shot through the space where he had been standing a moment before. It left a black burn mark on the stone. Threw his body forward. He put himself between the princess and the shooter. The second blast hit him in the chest. It was not meant to be blocked by anything as weak as human flesh. The energy tore through his ribs and burned his organs, felt the pain only for a moment, then he felt nothing at all. He fell to the floor. His blood was dark red against the pale stone. Behind him, guards rushed toward the attackers. Weapon fire filled the chamber. Alarms began to scream, did not hear any of it. His eyes were open, but they saw nothing. Princess pushed away from the table and ran to his body. She knelt beside him and took his hand. It was still warm, but already growing cold. She called his name, Cross. She said it like a prayer, like the words could bring him back to life. The guards killed 2 of the attackers. The third one escaped through a side door. Security forces rushed into the chamber and locked down the entire section of the building. The diplomat who had stepped over stood up from his seat and looked down at the human's body with no expression. He sat back down and returned his attention to the council meeting. The show had ended. Now they had to decide what to do about the chaos. Medical teams arrived and took away on a floating platform. They checked his vital signs and found nothing. His heart had stopped. His brain showed no activity. The human was dead. There was no question about it. He was dead, and he would stay dead. That was how things worked in the real universe. That was how the galaxy operated. Princess did not watch them take him away. She sat in her chair and did not move for an hour. The council tried to continue their discussions about pirates and mining rights, but they could not focus. The sight of human blood on the stone had affected them more than they wanted to admit. Even the species that did not respect humans had been forced to watch a primitive creature choose to die for someone else. That night, Princess made a decision that would change everything. She ordered a memorial service, not a small private ceremony, a full memorial service like those held for important aliens and royals. She would honor the human who had given his life to save hers. The council was confused by this. Some of them thought she was wasting time and resources on something meaningless, but no one could stop her. She was royalty. She had the power to do what she believed was right. 3 months had passed since Cross died on the floor of the council chamber. The Empire had returned to normal operations. Trade agreements had been signed. They had gained their mining rights. The Federation had received funding to fight pirates. The galaxy moved forward as it always did, leaving the dead behind. Princess had not forgotten. She visited its memorial every day for the first month. Then she moved on to other responsibilities. The Empire demanded her attention. There were treaties to negotiate and ceremonies to attend, but something in her had changed. She kept asking the same question to anyone who would listen. Was it truly necessary to lose such brave people? Was there no way to bring them back? Her scientists were intrigued by the question. They had been studying resurrection for thousands of years, but the results had always failed. The human body was different from theirs, more fragile but in some ways more resilient. The scientists worked with human experts from Earth. Together, they created something new, a hybrid technology that combined human biological science with genetic engineering. The process was experimental, dangerous. It had never been attempted before, but they had preserved consciousness before it disappeared completely. They had captured something that looked like thought patterns, like the very essence of who had been. The human doctors provided genetic material to rebuild his body, the added technology that could restore his neural patterns to the new flesh. For 8 weeks, Cross existed in machines. He was not alive, but he was not dead either. He was waiting for a body that could contain him again, waiting for a second chance. The resurrection chamber opened on the morning of the first spring rain. His eyes snapped open. He gasped for breath like he was drowning. His body convulsed as his new lungs learned how to work. His heart beat in a rhythm that sounded wrong to his ears, but it was beating. He was alive. When tried to stand, he discovered something strange. His body was stronger than before, not by a small amount, but significantly more powerful. His muscles responded to his thoughts faster than they ever had. His vision seemed sharper. His mind felt clearer. The resurrection had changed him. The combination of human and science had created something that was both and neither. News of his return spread across the galaxy within days. Every news station broadcast the images. A human who had died was now alive again. A human who had been enhanced beyond normal human capability. The reaction was immediate and divided. Some species celebrated. If resurrection was possible, if ancient bodies could be restored, it meant new hope for everyone. They were praised for their breakthrough achievement. Delegations from dozens of worlds arrived at their capital to study the technology. Other species reacted with anger and fear. The Dominion issued an official statement claiming that giving humans advanced technology was a mistake. They said it violated treaties that controlled what weapons and enhancements different species could possess. They demanded that be restricted, that he be kept away from sensitive council meetings, that he be put back in uniform and sent to do soldiers' work like all the other humans. The council called an emergency meeting, was brought before them to answer questions. He stood in the center of the circle, still wearing medical clothes because his old uniform no longer fit his new body. Ambassadors from 30 worlds stared at him. Princess stood and spoke first. She said that it saved her life through an act of total sacrifice. She said that his resurrection was not an accident or a violation of any law. It was a gift from science. She said that deserved to stand among them as more than just a soldier. She said he had earned a place of honor. The diplomat, the same one who had stepped over his body weeks before, stood up and challenged Princess' words. He said that humans were not ready for power. He said that one act of courage did not make an entire species fit for galactic governance. He said that should be grateful he had been brought back to life at all, and he should be satisfied serving in whatever capacity the council decided for him. Spoke then, his voice was steady and clear. He said he understood the council's concerns. He said he did not expect to be treated as equal to species that had existed for millions of years. He said he was not asking for power or authority. He was only asking for the chance to prove what humans could do when given real opportunities. He asked the council to allow him to serve in a new capacity, not as a bodyguard or a soldier, as an ambassador. A representative of human interests and human perspective on galactic matters. The council voted. The decision was close. 17 species voted in favor of his request. 12 voted against. One species abstained. It was not an overwhelming victory, but it was enough. Cross was appointed as first human ambassador to the Galactic Council. The diplomat left the chamber without saying another word. Princess approached after the meeting ended. She told him that his new position would be difficult. There would be resistance from other ambassadors. Some would try to undermine him or prove that humans did not belong in such high positions. But she said she would support him. She said she believed in him. Looked at this ancient being, this royal woman who represented a civilization millions of years old. He realized that she had taken his death personally. She had refused to let it be meaningless. She had pushed the boundaries of what was possible, and she had done it for someone who was not even her own species. Understood then that there was more hope in the galaxy than he had ever imagined. If an ancient royal would fight for a dead human, then maybe there was a future where humans truly belonged among the stars. Accepted his new position with gratitude. He began his work immediately, preparing to represent humanity in front of the most powerful gathering of minds in the galaxy. He had died as a soldier. He had returned as something more. Now he had to prove that the choice to bring him back had been the right. 6 weeks into his new role as ambassador, understood why the council had been so divided on his appointment. Every decision he made was questioned. Every suggestion he offered was examined for weakness. Other ambassadors watched him the way hunters watch prey, waiting for a moment of vulnerability. The diplomat, whose name was the most aggressive in his challenges. He was a massive creature, standing nearly 3 meters tall, with dark gray skin and cybernetic implants running along his neck and arms. His species had conquered 17 star systems through military strength alone, or believed that power was the only language that mattered. To him was a curiosity, a toy that had been given to the council by a sentimental princess. During a meeting about resource distribution to struggling outer colonies, launched his first direct attack. He stood while was presenting a proposal for establishing trade routes that would help worlds develop their own economies, interrupted him mid-sentence. The diplomat said that humans were tribal creatures. They had spent their entire evolutionary history fighting against each other. Humans did not understand cooperation on a galactic scale. They could not comprehend the needs of species that had transcended such primitive territorial instincts, said that allowing a human to advise the Council on economic policy was like allowing a child to guide a star destroyer. It was not just inappropriate, it was dangerous. Other ambassadors stopped their conversations and turned to listen. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the moment when the human would fail. Did not stand up immediately. He sat quietly for a few seconds thinking about what had said. He thought about human history. He thought about all the wars and conflicts that had defined his species, was right about one thing. Humans had fought each other, many times, for many reasons. When did stand, his voice was calm. He said that was correct about human history. He said that humans had indeed spent a long time fighting against each other. But he said that was not the end of the story. He said that humans had learned from those conflicts. They had developed systems of law and cooperation specifically because they understood the cost of tribalism. They had learned that working together was better than destroying each other. Continued, he said that the proposal he had presented was based on human economic principles that had been tested across dozens of human cultures. These principles worked because humans understood scarcity. Humans knew what it meant to struggle. Humans knew that sometimes the only way to survive was to help each other. That understanding, he said, was not a weakness. It was an insight that ancient species might have forgotten. He looked directly at and said something that made the entire chamber go quiet. He said that conquering a world was easy. Maintaining it, developing it, making it into something that benefited both the conquerors and the conquered, that was the hard work, had conquered 17 systems. Asked how many of them were stable. How many of them had populations that did not hate their overlords. How many of them contributed freely to prosperity rather than being forced through military occupation. Cybernetic implants lit up red with anger, but he said nothing. He sat back down heavily. No other ambassador laughed. They were dangerous and no one wanted to become their enemy. The council voted on his proposal. 8 ambassadors voted against it. 22 voted in favor. It was a clear majority. His economic plan would be implemented. The outer colonies would receive help developing their own industries. Princess came to after the meeting ended. She placed a hand on his shoulder and told him he had done well. She said that her people had been studying the diplomatic records of his response to war. She said that his logic was sound. But more importantly, she said, He had shown courage in standing against a powerful species without backing down. That was a rare quality. Many ambassadors would have apologized and withdrawn their proposal just to avoid conflict. Said he had been taught to never show weakness in front of enemies. Princess smiled and told him that he had learned this lesson well. Over the following weeks, other council members began to approach with problems. The Federation wanted advice on negotiating with pirates, suggested methods based on human military tactics. The methods worked. 3 pirate strongholds were dismantled without significant bloodshed. The mining operations were having labor disputes with their workers, suggested implementing oversight committees that included worker representation. They were skeptical at first. They had never involved lower-class workers in management decisions, but the committee system worked. Productivity increased. Complaints decreased. They began looking for advice on other labor issues. Slowly, the other ambassadors stopped treating with pure disdain. Some of them still did not trust him. They continued to oppose every suggestion he made, but the attacks became less personal. They became more strategic, or began questioning his methods rather than attacking his species. Realized that he was being tested. Each proposal he made was an examination of his competence and his character. He had to prove himself again and again. Unlike the ancient species who had accumulated prestige over millions of years, had to earn respect through constant performance. One evening, stood alone in the observation chamber overlooking Meridian's capital city. The stars shone above the planet, thousands of them, each one containing worlds and species and histories. He thought about how small humans were in this vast universe, how insignificant one human could be. But then he thought about his sacrifice. He had died to protect one person, and that sacrifice had been remembered. It had been honored. It had changed how an entire empire viewed an entire species. If one human could do that, then maybe the universe was not as impossible as it seemed. 4 months after became an ambassador, they executed their plan. It was a move designed to break him, to prove that humans could not handle real power, to demonstrate that acceptance into the council had been a mistake. The issue involved a planet called. It was situated in neutral space, claimed by both the Dominion and the Empire, was habitable, it had resources, but it was also home to a native population. They were not advanced by galactic standards. They had not developed space travel. They had not created artificial intelligence or discovered how to harness stellar energy. They had cities and culture and a civilization that had existed for 5,000 years, but they were not spacefaring. That made them, by council law, subjects for development rather than partners for negotiation. Or brought the issue before the full council. He presented the facts clearly and without emotion. They occupied valuable territory. Both thee and the wanted access to that territory, instead of fighting over it or proposed a solution that satisfied both powers. The native population would be relocated to designated reservation areas. They would be compensated. They would be preserved as a cultural exhibit, but their land would be developed by both thee and the working together. It was an elegant solution. It solved the territorial dispute. It preserved the culture technically. It benefited both powers. 23 ambassadors immediately supported the proposal. They did not see a problem with it. Sat in his chair and felt something cold move through his chest. He looked at Princess. She was frowning. She also saw the problem. Stood and spoke. He said that relocating the population violated their right to choose. He said that there were not ancient species that could be moved to reservations like historical artifacts. They were living beings with lives and connections to their homeland. Removing them from that land was not preservation. It was destruction. Or smiled. He had been waiting for this moment. He stood and responded to with careful words. He said that humans did not have the authority to make judgments about the rights of other species. He said that was applying human morality to a situation that was beyond human understanding. He said that the council had established these laws for a reason. Species that achieved space travel had certain rights. Species that had not achieved space travel existed at the pleasure of those who had. This was how the galaxy operated. This was how it had always operated. Or looked at the other ambassadors and asked them a question. He asked if they would allow a primitive species to tell them what they could and could not do in their own territories. He asked if they would sacrifice development and progress because a non-spacefaring species had feelings about their land. The other ambassadors did not move. They were uncomfortable, but they said nothing, or was strong. They were powerful. Disagreeing with them could bring consequences. Understood what was happening. This was not really about. This was about testing his resolve. This was about breaking him so that the council could say that humans did not belong in positions of real power, that humans were too sentimental, too weak. Spoke again, he said he understood how the galaxy operated. He said he respected the power of but he said that might did not equal right. He said that what Or was proposing was morally wrong. He said that humans had learned this lesson through their own history. Humans had once believed that advanced societies could take whatever they wanted from less advanced ones. That belief had led to millions of deaths, to suffering that lasted for generations. Said something that made every ambassador listen carefully. He said that the question before the council was not about it was about what kind of civilization the Galactic Council wanted to be. A civilization that took what it wanted from the weak, or a civilization that protected the vulnerable. The vote came quickly. 23 ambassadors voted in favor of Or's proposal to relocate 7 voted against it, 2 abstained. The motion passed, would be moved. Stood silently as the vote was announced. Princess looked at him with concern. She could see that he was struggling with something. Then did something no human ambassador had done before. He invoked the ancient right of single combat. It was a law so old that most ambassadors forgot it existed. An ambassador could challenge any decision by offering to settle the matter through direct physical combat rather than through voting. If the ambassador won, the decision was overturned. If the ambassador lost, the decision stood, and the loser accepted the verdict without further argument. The entire chamber went silent. No ambassador had invoked this right in over 1,000 years. It was considered primitive, dangerous. Or stood immediately. His cybernetic implants glowed with excitement. He said he would accept the challenge. He said it was fitting that the human would resort to violence instead of logic. He said it would demonstrate to everyone why humans did not belong at this council. The combat arena was prepared within the hour. It was a large circular space in a neutral facility, surrounded by force fields that kept the fighters contained. The entire council assembled to watch. Entered the arena wearing light combat gear, or entered wearing heavy armor enhanced with power systems. That was larger, stronger, enhanced with technology that did not fully understand. Every ambassador knew how this would end, would be destroyed, his body would be broken, and the council could finally dismiss the idea that humans belonged in power. The fight began or attacked with overwhelming force. He was fast for his size, powerful, trained by a military that had conquered countless worlds, moved away from the initial assault. He did not try to match Or's strength. Instead, he used speed and precision. Understood something that Or did not. Power was not the only thing that mattered in combat. Strategy mattered. Knowledge of anatomy mattered. Understanding your opponent's weaknesses and exploiting them mattered. These were things humans had learned through thousands of years of warfare. When Or swung his massive arm, ducked under it, and struck at a pressure point in this leg, Or did not even slow down, but noticed something. The armor was thickest on the torso and arms. It was thinner where joints moved, where flesh bent, where the armor had to allow movement. For 20 minutes was struck repeatedly. His body ached. Blood ran down his face, but he also struck carefully, precisely. Each blow targeted vulnerable areas. Each strike was calculated to cause maximum damage with minimum effort. Slowly, Or's movements became less fluid. His enhanced body did not tire as quickly as a normal human body would have. The resurrection had given him endurance. It had given him the ability to function while suffering injuries that would have stopped an ordinary human. Saw his opportunity or made a mistake. He overextended during an attack, moved inside his guard and struck directly at the joints in this arm. Something broke or roared with pain. But Or was a trained warrior. He did not give up. He fought with his remaining arm, matched him strike for strike. Finally, after nearly an hour of combat, struck a critical blow. He hit Or directly in the chest, breaking a rib and damaging the power systems in this armor. Or fell to one knee. He could not continue. He had lost. The force field that kept them contained shut down, Or did not look at as he left the arena. They had been defeated. His plan had failed. The council voted again. This time the decision was different. 26 ambassadors voted against Or's proposal, would not be developed, they would not be relocated, they would be granted protected status. They would be recognized as a sentient species with the right to self-determination. Princess approached after the vote. She told him that what he had done was extraordinary. She said that no one had expected him to win. She said that his willingness to risk his own body for the rights of aliens showed that he truly understood what it meant to belong to the galactic community. Was hurt, his arm was badly bruised, his ribs ached with every breath, but he was alive. And more than that, the grand chamber of the palace was filled with light. Dignitaries from every corner of the galaxy had come for the official ceremony. 6 months had passed since defeated or in single combat. In that time, the Galactic Council had changed. Humanity's position had changed. Stood in the center of the chamber, wearing a formal suit made from materials that combined human and technology. He wore medals on his chest that represented Earth, the Empire, and the Galactic Council itself. He was no longer the soldier in the back corner of the room. He was no longer a human that had to prove his worth with every breath. Princess approached him with a formal staff in her hands. The staff was made of pure crystallized starlight. It was older than human civilization. It represented authority, power, the right to speak and be heard. She placed the staff in his hands and spoke. She said that today, Cross was officially named first ambassador of humanity to the Galactic Council. She said that he held this position not because of charity or sentiment, but because he had earned it through sacrifice and strength. She said that humanity would now be represented in all council decisions. Human voices would be heard. Human perspectives would be considered. The diplomat sat in his seat. His arm was still in a support brace. He was healing but slowly. His face showed no emotion but saw him. He acknowledged that they existed, that they were powerful, that they had not disappeared just because one battle had been lost. The conflict between human and values would continue. But now the conflict would happen between equals, not between master and servant. After the ceremony, hundreds of ambassadors and delegates came to congratulate. Some of them had opposed his appointment. Now they shook his hand and told him they looked forward to working with him. Politics was like this. Yesterday's enemies could become tomorrow's allies when the benefit was clear enough. Late that evening, stood alone on a balcony overlooking the capital. The city spread out below him in layers. Beautiful buildings rose toward the sky. Transportation vessels moved between towers. Millions went about their lives in the city where humans were no longer forgotten, where humans were no longer ignored. Princess joined him on the balcony. She did not speak at first. She simply stood beside him and looked out at the city. Finally, she told him that she had been contacted by multiple species today. She said they wanted to establish relationships with humanity. The collective wanted to invite human scientists to collaborate on galactic research. The Federation wanted to create a trade agreement that would benefit Earth directly. The Hun Empire, a species that had once refused to even acknowledge human existence, now wanted to establish cultural exchanges. Asked her if she thought humanity was ready for this. She smiled and told him that no species was ever truly ready for change, but humans had proven themselves capable of change. Humans had proven themselves worthy of standing among the ancient powers. That was enough. Looked at his hand holding the crystallized starlight staff. He thought about the moment he died in this empire. He thought about his sacrifice. He thought about how one moment of choice had led to everything that followed. He told Princess that he had been thinking about Earth. He said that his planet had changed while he was away. News of his resurrection and promotion had spread across human territory. Other humans were now training to become ambassadors and diplomats. They were being sent to study at universities across the galaxy. Young humans with advanced degrees and sharp minds were being recruited for positions that had never been open to their species before. He said that Earth was no longer on the edge of the galactic community. It was moving toward the center. His people were becoming partners instead of servants. It was a shift that would take generations to fully complete, but it had begun. Princess told him that this was why she had fought for him. She said she had always believed that potential did not depend on how long a species had existed. She said that humans had something that many ancient species had lost. They had hunger. They had drive. They had the ability to change and adapt and grow. These were qualities that the galaxy needed. She told him that in 1,000 years, humans might be considered an ancient species. They might have lost the hunger that made them special. But for now, she said, humans represented something important. Humans represented the possibility of becoming more than what you were born as. Understood, he was not just standing in the balcony as an ambassador. He was standing there as proof that a species could rise, proof that sacrifice could mean something, proof that the galaxy was not a fixed thing where ancient species ruled forever, proof that things could change. The next morning received his first official assignment. He was to travel to Earth and brief the human governments on the current state of the Galactic Council. He was to help his people understand what they could achieve. He was to bring the message that humans belonged among the stars. They did not have to hide. They did not have to be afraid. As his transport left the palace, looked back one more time. He thought about the council chamber where he had died. He thought about lying on that stone floor, knowing that his life was over. He thought about the pain of the energy blast and the darkness that followed. If someone had told him then that he would be back, stronger than before, standing as an equal to the most powerful beings in the galaxy, he would not have believed it. It seemed impossible, but it had happened. Understood then that this was what made humans special. Humans could believe in things that seemed impossible. Humans could sacrifice everything for a principle. Humans could come back from destruction and stand taller than before. The transport carried him toward Earth, toward home, toward a future where human voices would be heard in the highest councils of the galaxy, where human ideas would shape the future, where human courage would be remembered not as a curiosity, but as a fundamental part of what it meant to be part of the galactic community. Had died protecting a princess. He had returned to stand among royals, but more importantly, he had returned to prove that humanity had a place among them, not because of ancient history or technological superiority, but because of something simpler and more powerful. Because humans refused to accept that they could not belong, because humans had the strength to stand up to impossible odds, because humans, when given the chance, chose to protect others even if it cost them everything. The stars shone ahead of him, thousands of them, each one a world, each one full of possibility. And now humans would walk among those stars not as servants or soldiers, they would walk as ambassadors, as equals, as beings worthy of standing in the highest chambers of power. That was legacy, not just his own success, but the door that his sacrifice had opened. For every human who would now stand among the galactic powers they had crossed to thank. The human who died protecting a princess. The human who returned to prove that his species belonged among the royals. The human who changed the galaxy forever. D changed something. He had proven that humans could not just stand among the powerful. Humans could challenge them. Humans could beat them when given the chance. That was a lesson no amount of words could have taught. Heard footsteps. A diplomat from the collective approached him. She was a crystalline being, shaped like a tall blade, and she had always been neutral in her treatment of. She told him that his performance had impressed several species that had not yet formed strong opinions about humans. She said that the collective would support his next major proposal. She said that humans clearly had something valuable to contribute to galactic governance. Thanked her. As she left, he realized something important. He did not need every ambassador to believe in him. He only needed enough of them to see his value. And slowly, that was happening. The doubters were becoming outnumbered by those who recognized that a human, once given the chance to prove himself, could stand as an equal among the ancient and powerful species of the Galactic Council. The weight of that responsibility was heavy, but had learned something important. Humans could bear heavy burdens. They could survive impossible situations. They could rise again when everything said they should stay down. That was what made humans human, and it was time to show the galaxy what that meant. Cross became the first human ever honored in this way by the Empire. His body was not there to be honored. The humans had taken what remained back to Earth for a proper burial, but his memory was there. His sacrifice was there. And in the hearts of those who witnessed his death, something began to change. The galaxy had seen what a human could do. It had seen the choice a human could make. It had seen courage, and it was a sight that could not be forgotten.